identifying some of the different things related, I always like to go ahead and just pretty much speak to the actual best practice. And of course, you know, the overall objective here is really to discuss the importance of establishing that consistent way for users to capture that actual content, describe it, classify it, and of course, find that actual information at some point in time during the life cycle of that actual content. And of course, all of this is really tightly tightly associated with the business process. And so if we take a look at Ames research, it's obvious that organizations are taking a serious look at SharePoint as a content management platform. So I didn't want to read over these actual points. I just wanted to surface these points so that you can pretty much see why we're encouraged to start this content intelligence series. And of course, the last bullet point, I think you nailed it down. SharePoint has pretty much become a household name for a lot of organizations, whether they're public or still private. But when we think about, typical organizations, right, and this may be reflective of your organization, we have a number of point solutions used to address business requirements. And, this has pretty much been the trend for a number of years. So I won't dive into these points individually, but what we need to wrap our head around is that all of these actual solutions can actually be rolled up into one consistent platform that provides a consistent and unified repository. So we'll surface a lot of those capabilities. Now, quite sure you've all seen this. Don't worry, I don't plan on diving into each of these capabilities. But I wanted to just point out that what Microsoft is doing in this particular case with what we call the solution wheel is trying to help us wrap our heads around the various capabilities of SharePoint. And of course, there's some overlap. For this particular section, we're really focusing on content management. Although what we will discuss today will add value in each and every other area or workload where SharePoint is solving the business. So right off the bat, why don't we start by talking about some of these organizational problems? Let's put this in just take a look at some organizational problems here. And, this has really been, a compelling set of problems for organizations when they attempt to work with SharePoint as a platform. And so I just really wanted to just really paint this picture for all of the actual attendees. So it doesn't matter if I'm working with SharePoint around enterprise content management, records management, image management, workflow management, or business process management. What we're running into is that there's a consistent underlying problem. And so as a result,
yes. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have a few people in the QA chat telling me they can't see your slide. I'm really sorry to interrupt. Just for those of you that can't see it, I'm sorry. Is there any way you could
can you see that?
Make it full screen? I mean, the problem is I see your slides just fine, so I'm not sure.
It's full screen.
Anything? I can see all kinds of things. I can see. Okay, so it looks like most people are able to see your slides, but we do have one or two that cannot. Let me talk to them one-on-one. Go ahead. Continue on. Thank you.
I apologize, everybody. So in essence, there's an underlying reason for these problems. So number one, you'll notice that the classification system is ineffective. What that means is that, look, our users are pretty much doing their own thing, and it's not really adding a huge amount of value to the organization as a whole. Or your information is not manageable, there's an inconsistent content model, or even the overall content system is unusable. And that really plagues a lot of legacy vendors because they lack certain capabilities that SharePoint provides out of the box. So what are some of the pitfalls when we have these actual issues, right? Or these various types of problems? Your content model isn't consistent. The information is represented in so many different ways and it's not structured that it really works against the user productivity. And then, of course, finally, the classification of that actual content is very, very inconsistent. So the perception, and I didn't take time to break this down into such huge, meaning the business owners, to the users who are utilizing the actual solution for IT, but I collectively, these are a summary of the actual problems that we are experiencing as an organization across the board when leveraging SharePoint as a platform, right? So, for example, systems are unusable, right? Just want to nail that down. Content doesn't have a single consistent way of being classified. We'll jump into it. So, again, just keep this in mind when you're thinking about how can I solve the issues associated with my organization. So from an IT perspective, it's too many systems. I'm managing all of these actual systems. It requires specialized talent. It could be a number of things. So as a result, users, the risk is actually increasing. Now, from an organizational perspective, the overall goal is really to increase user adoption. We all agree with it. And, we have a number of areas or a number of ways to measure success, but at the end of the day, users or your customers, and I use the term customers, must leverage and utilize the system, right? There's an inconsistent user interface. The classification process maybe is tedious because they are manually entering this actual information. There's quite a bit of processes that users are consistently and manually participating in. So it would be great to have that transparent. They want a system where it's really easy, and I use that term loosely. It's really easy to push that content into the repository with the actual description so that it can add value in other areas. Same thing from a business leader perspective in IT, they just have a different perspective of it, on it, sorry. And so business leaders want to support more content. In other words, an example would be, most organizations have invested heavily in providing lifecycle management. Well, what about other types of content that exist in your organization? That puts you at a huge risk. Also, you're in a heavily regulated organization, right? You need to ensure that you're in compliance. And then, of course, from an IT perspective, they just want a simple solution that they can support. So I won't read over each and every one of them, right? So let's get to the actual meat of the actual presentation. So let's talk about these different types of approaches. So before you can actually get to the point where SharePoint is, how would I state this, is operating as expected, it's very predictable. You need to have your head wrapped around your existing repository. You need to have some knowledge of who owns that actual content, how are people working with that actual content, do they actually have some existing organization classification strategies, which business processes are associated with that content. Because remember, SharePoint as a unified repository can host quite a bit, if not all, of your business processes as a part of that actual platform. Again, I'm from Georgia, and I believe in milking the cow. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, look, let's leverage this platform and identify organizations or ISVs that can add a significant amount of value and leverage it in its entirety. So what I want to do, folks, is talk about what do I mean by content intelligence. It really is just a simple way to discuss the actual capabilities that SharePoint provides to ensure that SharePoint as a platform is predictable. So the overall objective here, folks, is really we want to make sure that we identify that the key is to structure your taxonomy in a manner that promotes consistency across your entire organization. And of course, at the same time, it's really important that this system or this platform is flexible. So either A, you can scale it into other business functions in your organization, or as there are changes made within your industry, within your organization, the platform can actually easily be enhanced to support those changes. So any ideal content intelligence strategy or approach for SharePoint